Thank you for being here with us this evening. A couple of logistic notes. We do have restrooms that are really close by. We have a ladies' restroom here, a men's restroom here, but if you need to make use of them and you don't want to go in front of everybody, we do have them out in the hallway as well, so you can exit to the back for those. But other than that, I just want to say briefly thank you for being in this space this evening. We're lucky here. We get to work with Georgia Center for the Book, and we get to host these events. We've had a really busy May with some amazing conversations that have been thought-provoking and given us stuff to chew on. But we get to open up our doors and have these amazing authors and thinkers and have you all come into our space to help us grow, help us learn, and challenge us. And so we are grateful that you have chosen to spend your evening here with us, and we just want to say, welcome. I have said before, so forgive me if you've heard me say this, that we do these events here because we value pebbles. And what I mean by that is, have you ever had a pebble get stuck in your shoe? It's such a tiny, tiny thing, but it is all-consuming. It drives you bananas until you have to deal with it. You have to take off your shoe and take out that pebble and do something about it. And what we have found here, that when we host these kind of conversations, we get pebbles of all sorts. These are challenges that just rub us in just the right way, that we have to deal with them. And sometimes we get really life-changing pebbles out of these events, and sometimes we get giant rocks and pieces of glass that forever change us for the better. And I feel like that is what we're going to get this evening with Rachel, especially from what she has given us already with her body of work in her career so far. So thank you for being willing to walk with pebbles in your shoes this evening. I want to turn the evening over to ER with Charis Books, and come on up. We'll get this started more.
Thank you so much, Shelley. So my name is E.R. Anderson. I'm the executive director of Charis Circle. Charis Circle is a nonprofit programming arm of Charis Books. Charis Books is the South's oldest independent feminist bookstore. We are so, so honored to be here with all of you tonight. We are grateful always to the Georgia Center for the Book. We are grateful always to the First Baptist Church of Decatur. They are allowing us to be in this space for free, to be in fellowship with all of y'all tonight. So thank you, thank you, thank you to all of you for being with us. It is my great honor to get to introduce tonight's amazing speakers. So Charis gets to host more than 270 events a year. And part of what we love doing is celebrating people as they move through the country, move through the world, speaking their truth. And no one speaks their truth quite like Rachel Cargle. I assume if you are here, you already know her work. We are going to begin by watching a short video, but before we do the video, I'm going to introduce both of our speakers so that then they can come right up and be with us after the video is over. So Rachel E. Cargle is an activist, entrepreneur, and philanthropic innovator. She is the founder of the Loveland Group, a family of companies, including Elizabeth's Bookshop and Writing Center, so fellow independent bookstore owner, a literary space that celebrates marginalized voices, and the Great Unlearn, an adult learning platform that centers the teaching of BIPOC thinkers. In 2018, she founded the Loveland Foundation, offering free access to mental health care for Black women and girls. Cargle is a regular contributor to Cultured Magazine, Atmos, The Cut, and her work has been featured in the Washington Post, the New York Times, and the New Yorker. Her debut memoir, A Renaissance of Our Own, is the book we are here to celebrate tonight. And she's joined in conversation tonight by someone who I assume many of y'all know well, Myleik Teele, who is the founder of CURLBOX, the first monthly subscription service for textured hair. A multi-hyphenate career woman with many passions and interests, she has forged a unique professional path that reflects her marketing, community building, and commerce expertise. Myleik has spent many years as host of MyTaughtYou podcast, organized a luxury retreat, founded an investment club, and recently launched an online community empowering Black moms. Myleik's work centers Black women, and the most significant intention behind her work is to be of service to Black women who aren't afraid to do the internal work external success hinges on. Many major brands have sought her talents as a consultant and collaborator. So we're very lucky to have both of these folks with us tonight. And we are going to begin by watching this video of her manifesto, of Rachel's manifesto. So if y'all can cue that up. And before you do that, will y'all please put it together for Rachel Cargle and Myleik Teele.
I am who I say I am. I shape my existence with curiosity and intention. I honor the spectrum of experiences I have had and will continue to have in this lifetime. Each experience adds to my understanding of the type of woman I decide to be. My highest values of ease, abundance, and opportunity give me guidance and recalibration toward my truth. They strengthen my yes and fortify my no. I walk confidently with the understanding that my choices are aligned. My place in the world is sacred. No one knows me better than I know me. I honor and celebrate the ways my chosen self unfolds as I learn, grow, and shift. My beliefs are rooted in my trust that my current self, younger self, and older self are all partners on my path to well-being. I surround myself with people who affirm safety, kindness, and joy. I maintain boundaries that remind me and others of my needs and my desire to be well. I show up with my very best as a daughter, lover, auntie, neighbor, and friend. I hold tight to my belief in revolution. Justice is not a passive pursuit, but one braided into every way I show up in the world. I name my privileges, being educated, financially secure, neurotypical, able-bodied, and cisgendered, and I use them as platforms to fight for the well-being of others. It's an honor to learn my way through this lifetime. I commit myself to my curiosity and interests. Gaining new and deeper knowledge not only of myself, but also of my unique interests like art and the history of Black feminism is always a worthy use of my time. I have found my work in the world to be rooted in using my genius as an activist, writer, entrepreneur, and philanthropic innovator. I do my work in a way that aligns with my values and desires. Rest is a right I hold as a human being. Knowing that my best self is my highest service, I tend generously to my rest and healing, mind, body, and soul. I give myself permission to let go of perfectionism and invest energy into simply being inspired by the living.
Rachel Cargle, there we go. We are on. It is so good to see you.
Yes.
Welcome to Atlanta.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm so happy to see my book in your hand in particular.
I was so glad when I got this book. So I had coffee with you and we talked about a book, and then I opened the book and I was like,
This is not the book.
this is not the book. How did you arrive at this book?
I signed this book deal in 2018, and this was not the deal that I signed. A lot of my work at the time, and I've been talking to many of my peers who also got book deals around that time, they were all rooted in the expectation that we write about racism, that we write about the racism within the feminist movement that a lot of us were speaking of, and that's what I was doing. That's what I signed the book deal for, and so I was working on it. And then 2020 came, and I was just exhausted. I was doing so much writing, so much work around really just hoping to convince white people that Black lives mattered. And I decided I just didn't want to do my work. I didn't want that to be where I was putting my energy, my effort, my craft, my time. And so I literally called my agent and I said, I will pay you the advance back. Like, I don't want to write this book. I don't want to do my work this way. And they gave me a lot of options and a lot of freedom for how this book could go forward, including me letting them know, one, I didn't want it to be an anti-racism book. I didn't want that to be the focus of it. And also, I wanted more money because I had more followers since then. So I got both of those things.
So I always tell Rachel amongst our friends that when we are in certain situations, we are like, what would Rachel do? And it's like, Rachel would want more money. Rachel would say, no, I'm not doing that. I'm doing something different, so you're going to need to pay me more for the thing I said I was going to do that I don't want to do anymore. I love that for you. I love that about you, and I think about you often.
Thank you.
So I picked up the book, and I wondered why Renaissance versus reinvent. And I asked that question because I have been asked pretty frequently, reinvention. But there was something special about just the cover, and it says a Renaissance of our own. And so tell me about that.
I first want to say that I had at my DC stop, I had a follower tell me that she noticed that I have both Beyonce and Oprah in my title, both Renaissance and Own, and I love that for me. But this title actually, I came up with this title in like 2015. It was something that I had written down in a notebook when I had first moved to Brooklyn, living in like a shoebox inside of a shoebox. And I felt so possible. I felt so excited for whatever was about to come out of this time in New York City. I had just moved from DC. I was freshly divorced, and I was like, I could do anything. And I was sitting down, and in that notebook I said, I feel like I'm entering a renaissance of my own.
Yes.
And I wrote that in the notebook. And then when I came to the book, and when I switched the book to this memoir, I told myself that I would bring that title, which when I wrote it down, I was like, ooh, that could be a book one day. Like, that sounds like a book title. And so I called my editor and I said, we're going to change the book title as well. And so I got to stick with it. And Renaissance was something that had been on my mind all that time ago when I first landed in New York and was so intrigued by what was coming for me.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So for those who haven't read the book, you tell lots of personal stories, things that I think for those of us that have followed you may not have known. Mm-hmm. And you, through those stories, you explore, I feel like, various themes that you suggest we reimagine. And so can you tell us, what are some things that you have reimagined that we can consider reimagining? And what I love about it is that you give work in ways, it's actionable, ways that we can do our work.
Yeah, I felt very much so that I didn't want anyone to come to this book looking for answers. Yes. I wanted them to come looking for what questions they might need to be asking themselves.
Yes.
And so breaking the book down into reimagining love, reimagining education, reimagining, business. These things, I wanted to give like these markers of where they could go to, because though the book tells my story fairly chronologically, the memoir aspect of it, each chapter dips into a specific aspect of my life that I have noticed I've done a little bit differently. Not even that I set out to do differently, but when I talk to other people about their love lives, when I talk to other people about how they run their business, I see like, oh, we're doing things a bit differently, and it's been really fun to pull out those themes in each chapter. But with each chapter, there's an anecdote, a story of mine that speaks to how I came into whatever my reimagining was. But at the end of each chapter, there's questions. And even inside of each chapter, there's questions. And so I am having so much fun seeing how readers are answering the questions, whether they share it in a story or they DM me and say, oh my gosh, I never considered this. I never had even known that I could ask these types of questions. Sometimes just the fact that there is a question is the renaissance, knowing that we have options, knowing that we can ask questions that might change things. And I hope that that's what my readers get from it.
I love that because I feel like it is for everyone. Like sometimes we feel like reimagining is for certain people, but this book just affirms that anyone who picks it up and asks the questions, reimagining is for all of us. So the book delves into the complexities of identity and belonging. What ways, your identity, who you are, can you talk us through some of the things that kind of changed along your path? Like, who did you, who were you when you moved to Brooklyn? And like, who were you?
Who was I yesterday?
Who were you yesterday? I know we just had a lovely talk, of the backstage of like just this consistent unfolding.
Yeah.
But all the ways, like some of the ways that your identity, some of the ways that you've unfolded. I'm most fascinated by the way you do business.
It's my favorite thing about you too. You're my entrepreneurial crush.
I love the way you do it. But
we'll talk about that in a
yes.
second. But it came up in conversation last night in Chicago that a major underlying theme in how I move through the world has a lot to do with worthiness. And I think that shows up in all of these chapters and all of these spaces. I tell this story of when I was very young, I played soccer. I was like a forward and very serious about it. And I loved playing sports, and I was on like travel teams and winter clubs, and I just was very serious about the sport. And my mom would come to the games, and in the springtime, when we would be playing in the spring, it'd be rainy and the grass would be wet, and my mom couldn't always make it to the field because my mom had polio and her crutches would sink into the grass. And my mom started a petition to get a sidewalk from the parking lot to the field so that she could come see me play. Yeah. Like, there weren't any other disabled parents who might use it. There wasn't another kid who she might want to see. Like, my mom didn't make it a thing. She wasn't like, Rachel, we're about to go fight for justice. It just was something she did on Tuesday after school.
Okay.
There was no
they
intense,
need to make this happen
yeah, there
for
wasn't
me.
like big lesson around it. It was just like she truly believed that she deserved to see her child play, regardless of how much money pouring concrete was going to need. And she did it. They literally changed the infrastructure of the sports complex so my mother could come and see me play. And I also think about times when, as a disabled woman, I was with my mom and I was 8 or 9 and she couldn't get the groceries into the trunk and I definitely couldn't get the groceries into the trunk. So every single time we went to the grocery store, my mom was asking some random person in the parking lot to come help us to put the groceries into the trunk. And it was very much a part of my childhood to believe that we were worthy of whatever it was that we needed in these very casual ways.
Right. Help us out. Like, they're going to help.
Yes.
We're going to the store and someone's going to help
Yes,
us.
and my mom was never like, excuse me, could you come over here and help? She'd be like, come over here and put these in the car. And everyone participated. Nobody, no, I don't remember one time where someone was like, no, I'm not doing that. Everyone met her where she brought herself. Like, she expected other people to treat her the way she expected to be treated. And I think that even though I think my mom she constantly was like, Rachel, sit down somewhere. Like, why are you doing so much? It was because she gave me that type of confidence.
Yes,
but
the wiring.
Yeah, I think some of the underlying things of what I reimagined is just me feeling worthy of asking a question or considering something new. And I had fun with this book, finding all of the threads of that in all of these different areas of my life.
Speaking of that, did you run into any challenges when you were writing this book? What were some of it flows so beautifully, but did you ever get stuck?
So many challenges.
Yeah.
The biggest challenge is that there is a bunch of stories I was telling myself that were not true. There were a bunch of narratives in my head, a bunch of truths about myself, a bunch of truths about my family, about my mother, about my sisters, that when I took a moment to fact check myself real quick before, I sent it off to the editor, and I was calling my family and was like, what was it that happened? Or who was it that showed up? Or what didn't happen? There were many stories I was telling myself, enough to believe it that I had put it in the manuscript, that when I really thought about it or I really checked in on it, they just were not true.
My goodness.
And so this was a massive project of self. Like, the stories that I was willing to share with my readers, I had to be honest.
Yes.
And being honest is one of the hardest parts of healing, because you have to be honest first. Like, we go through our lives often telling ourselves stories that keep us safe. Oh, my childhood wasn't that bad. Oh, that person didn't really harm me. Oh, it wasn't, it wasn't that wild of a situation. And that is a coping mechanism to say, you're okay. It wasn't that bad. But when you have to face the truth of it,
yes.
that puts you in a moment of having to feel the feelings and move through the truth of it. And that the hardest part was uncovering all of the stories I had told myself that were not true.
Wow. After you had written it, you're like, okay, let me just run this by some people. They're like,
Yes,
no,
they're like,
Rachel.
no, girl, where were you at? Because you were not there when that thing happened. Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah.
And so that's my next question was about the role of self-reflection in fostering personal growth that you discuss in your book. Like, what is the role self-reflection plays in fostering personal growth?
I feel like when we are reflecting on self, I don't know if it's just the language I use or really how I feel like I'm in deep relationship with myself. Like, that line, I know me better than anyone else knows me, doesn't just speak to, like, don't tell me what you think about me. It's not about issuing advice or someone telling me the truth about a story, but I am in such relationship with myself that I am the one who ushers myself to new levels. I am the one who gives me direction, who helps me recalibrate myself.
Did you always feel this way? Like, did you arrive at this, or have you always had so much self-trust?
Well, I think a little bit is childhood trauma, to where I had to care for myself because I just had to. I was the able-bodied person in the room. I was the perhaps the most educated person in the room. So I think that a lot of it has to do with the way that I could have been cared for more by adults in my world, but since I wasn't, I had to care for myself, which put a deep self-trust in me. But I also think that I think that I've learned that I dream bigger than most people I meet. I think different than most people I meet. And so I kind of like my ideas better than most other people's. And so I have learned to value my voice. I've learned to appreciate it. I've learned to mold it to braid in with what other people think and feel and who have expertise more than me. But I have been through things that have insisted that I trust myself. But I think just thinking back to childhood, which gives us so much of ourselves within it. My mom used to because my mom couldn't play with me. She was on crutches, so it's not like we were running around. And so the way that she would play with me is that she would take me to a park and she'd be like, go climb to the top of that and tell me what the view is from up there. Come back and report what the view is from up there. Or she'd say, go find out what that girl's name is. And in my mind, when I was a child, I thought these were the most fun adventures. I thought it was so cool. It was like a scavenger hunt of fun things to do. But I really started to consider, was my mom doing that to remind me what I was capable of, or to prove to herself that she had a daughter who would be capable because she knew she wouldn't always be around?
Yeah.
And so I really think that maybe out of necessity, my mother fostered this belief in myself. You can do things, not only can you, but you have to, because I will not be able to, run and help you in most situations. But also, like I said, kind of when I was sick, I really had to my mom couldn't walk up and down the stairs. I was never carried, I was in the ways that children often are. I was very self-reliant. And I hope that as an adult, I'm able to continue to alchemize that into things that are more nurturing instead of the hard of it.
Right.
But I do think that a lot of my self-knowing has to do with being in this ongoing relationship with myself. Even asking, what do you actually think, Rachel? Giving myself a pause and saying, why are you doing this? Are you doing this because someone else wants you to? Are you doing this because you feel like you have to? I really do take pauses to be in conversation with myself. But some of us are scared to be in conversation. We don't trust ourselves.
No.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
self-trust, and as a parent, that when people ask, what are my goals as a parent, the number one goal is self-trust, is that no one knows you better than you.
Yeah.
And so I think that is the foundation for like a lot of what you do and the big dreams and going to someone and saying, I want more,
Yeah.
you'll give me more. Put my groceries in the truck.
And I want to say that I think that this isn't, you didn't miss out on it if you weren't parented that way.
Correct,
There's
right.
so much opportunity for us to do that within ourselves as adults, maybe even more, because we're up against these everyday situations where we have to question why we're doing it, what we're doing, how we're doing it. And I'm grateful for the ways that I've been able to also reparent myself and witness other people find inspiration in themselves. I like how people are inspired by what they do.
A question that I've been asking because I'm just curious. I think that self-awareness is easily one of the number one things that is required to also sort of grow. Do you have any tips of cultivating self-awareness for us? Yes, no, maybe?
Yeah, I'm thinking that a lot of my self-awareness lately has come from my friends reflecting me to myself.
Are you open to this?
Yes, being
reflection?
open to it,
Okay.
being open to it. Even like a friend recently told me, like, Rachel, you use the same 5 words, come with something new. Like you're smarter than that. You have a bigger vocabulary. Like, we all know it. And I think in my mind, it was like, those were the themes of my work, which I love having clarity about the themes of my work. But like, you're right, I am smarter than that. Like, I literally can find even new ways to say the same thing. It's not that I need to go away from the conversation. It's just finding new ways to say the same thing. And for me to be able to say like, oh, you're absolutely right about that. Because also, we have been taught that we have to hate ourselves to new levels.
Come on.
Like, I don't feel like I have to hate myself to the next thing. Yes. And we're told, like, in order to feel better in your body, you have to hate this body and then work so hard to get away from this, which you're in right now. Or to be in to grow in your career, you have to be, or even style, like you have to be embarrassed by something in order to go to the next thing. And I don't want to feel that way. And I don't want to think that way. So I've been relishing in opportunities to grow and change because I think I've worked really hard to not feel like I have to hate myself to every new level.
I thank you for that. I feel so lucky to be able to speak with authors and to the kind of work that you write. I feel like self-awareness is always that like hard mystery thing, like self-care. And so hearing how you are self-aware is very helpful. What advice would you give to readers who want to incorporate these principles and values discussed within the book to their everyday lives? Like, I think you said some of it, lots of questions, but.
Well, I think in the book, I walk you all through how to find your highest values in the ways that I did. And highest values were so life-changing for me because they just gave me direction. Maybe they gave me like a lens, they gave me a perspective that allowed me to use it in everyday life. I talk about, when I realized that ease was a value of mine, it didn't just look like me walking around and saying, I'm about to be easeful, y'all, like, don't stress me out. It really was, it comes up when I'm trying to decide how I want to use public transportation. I live in New York City, and if I'm really stressed that day or really irritated that day, I'm not going to hate myself for spending some money to be in a cab instead of going on the train. Like, there's these everyday moments of saying ease is a value of mine, and that holds so much weight compared to XYZ. Maybe it's even in the food. It's so stressful every day to be like, what am I about to eat day to night? And so when I say ease, I'm not going to get mad at myself if for a week I get the same kale sandwich that I love in Brooklyn, because ease is a value of, I'm doing something for me and I don't have to question myself. There's no other higher authority telling me what's better for me, and I can move through. It really affects like small day-to-day things when you really think about what you want. And it's kind of like when you want a red Corvette and you see it everywhere. Like, I see opportunities for ease everywhere.
Come on.
I see opportunities for abundance everywhere, because that is the thing I'm looking at. I'm not distracted by, and by distracted, I don't mean that this thing is worse. I just mean it's not my thing. I'm not stressed about what clothes I'm gonna wear, because I'm perfectly content with wearing my robes every day. I'm not like
She said she was gonna wear her
Y'all are
robes on
lucky
this
I got
tour.
a stylist for this tour. Yeah, because I was gonna, but it's like it really also helps you. I wrote this recently to myself, like, I am so choosy about what I stress about these days.
Ooh.
There's so many things to stress about, and I'm just not
Choosy.
about to stress about particular things that might be stressful, but instead of like, even, I've been traveling so much on this tour, and there have been so many opportunities for me to be late to a flight, or just this morning coming from Chicago, like it took 30 minutes for an Uber to even accept my request, and then the traffic in Chicago. And I was just sitting in the back of the car like, this is not what I'm going to choose. Whatever happens, happens. This is not what I'm going to choose to stress about. And it has really, really shifted something in me to know my values and decommit to stressing.
I highlighted something. It's like when I opened the author's note, and I just want to read it because it is sort of stained in my brain, and I think it'll stick with us. It says, "While I did not have a name for this feeling at the time, I think we would call it ambition. I craved a different life from the one I have been born into." And I feel like that sort of just speaks to everything that you do. Do you have any ideas for, do you have hope for long-term impact for a renaissance of our own? Do you, it's released, it's out there, the words are on the page.
I think that this book speaks to, I'm 34, so it speaks to a very particular age of me, obviously,
Yes.
a very particular lifespan so far. And writing is hard because who you are at that time is what's on the page. Like, I've already grown a bit already from what I wrote in the book. And so
How long ago did you?
a year ago, 6 months ago is when I finished it,
6
but I've
months ago.
changed.
Okay, right.
I've grown, I have new thoughts.
Yeah.
Not even necessarily different thoughts, but new thoughts, new ways of considering things.
Any you can share, just because I'm curious.
I just have grown. I just have, my mother's passing has changed me, changed the makeup of me.
Okay.
And I feel my feelings differently. I relate to people differently. And I'm looking forward to the thread of that being pulled from Renaissance and moving into whatever my next writing will be, because it all is the same story, but it's new, it's under new spotlights. And I think that I'm really excited for all of the people who need that part of me.
This is a need. I said this
Yeah.
to you when I walked in. I was like, this is a book that I was looking for all the times that I was scouring the bookstore. Like, this just didn't exist, and this is such a necessary book for wherever you are. Like you said, even if you weren't parented this way, to have self-trust, this is the book.
Yeah, and I feel proud of what of me is in these pages, and it makes me think of writers, writers who we follow their career for a very long time. We want to see them change. We want to see them grow, to think differently, because we as the readers want to grow and think differently along with them. And I'm excited for 20 years from now when someone reads, because they need that version of me. And I might have written 3 more books by then, but they need that book that's going to get them to whatever new space they need to be in. So I think the long-term impact that I'm excited about is, as an author, I feel like what being a writer means is that you get to be in ongoing conversation with people. It feels like these are my words, and now I'm ready to hear you talk back. And so I'm excited for the longevity of conversations I might have with people who will find the book for the first time, and it will be, we'll all have kind of gotten to another place in age, but there is someone who is very young right now who will be married and getting a divorce, and that will speak to exactly where they're at. So I'm looking forward to how the book exists and is enjoyable draws the exact person who needs to read it.
Right.
And I think that's why I'm not worried about you were asking me like how I feel about the numbers.
Yeah.
Like I really am not so much worried about the numbers because I really am excited for the one person who needs to read it.
Yeah.
Like I'm excited for the specifics of who needs to read it.
Yeah, I was curious because, so many people, it's like, okay,
It's
am I going to do this? Am I
stressful
going to,
out here.
And I'm just like, are you really enjoying the beauty of the book that you wrote versus feeling like, and a friend and I were just saying that even getting, on these lists or something, it doesn't mean that the work is critically acclaimed. It just
really
means
doesn't.
that
It really doesn't mean much.
people,
When we first got into the publishing and they're like, are you going to, like, this could be a New York Times bestseller. I'm like, do I get another check when that happens? Like, I don't understand.
what would Rachel do? WWRD.
I just don't understand why we're, like, I get, like, it is exciting and it's cool to see that people are picking up the book, but I want to read what people email me.
Yes.
I want to read what people
The
say
tweets,
to me.
the posts, the way
Yeah.
that they're moved, the reels that are going to have,
Yes.
all of the quotes, because the whole book is just, it's quotable, tweetable. It's,
Thank you.
Yes, all of the sentences. So I know that there are questions. There's Q&A. So
Yes,
should we,
yes, if there
should we
are
move
any
to Q&A?
questions.
So you can either go up to that microphone, or if you want to call upon the spirit of Rachel's mother, stand up, put your hand, say, bring the microphone.
Yes.
Yes.
Which we have, every stop has had a seat for my mom at the front with flowers in it. And so my mom Gwendolyn, so I'm grateful that we were able to honor her in each location.
That is.
Yeah.
Hi, my
Hi.
name's Mirtha Donastorg. My question is, you started the Loveland Group, the Loveland Foundation, the therapy fund, and then this book, it seems like a lot of your work is to help people be better through therapy, through reimagining, Renaissance. What is it, like, why is that such a huge driver and mission for you?
Such a good one.
I really feel like my work is to just think out loud, to feel out loud, to grow out loud, to heal out loud. And so I don't even know if I'm doing it for anyone. It's just literally what I'm going through. It's, the Loveland Foundation started because I had just had an incredible therapy session, and I was like, oh my gosh, everyone deserves to have this. And so I started that. Even my bookstore, I moved back home to Akron, and I missed the types of bookstores that we have in Brooklyn. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm gonna start one because I want one here. And it really was, everything that I'm doing is really just me being in relationship with myself out loud. And I feel so grateful for that because I've had such a spiritual shifting in myself over the last several months, and I can't wait till we have brunch so we can really talk about this.
Yes.
But I really feel that my ancestors are like, girl, we're going to make you as comfortable as you need to be, but the only thing you have to do is heal. Ooh. The only thing we want you to heal and do it out loud.
Wow.
And I feel like that's my work. I feel like there is nothing particularly special or unique about me except for the fact that I have a platform to talk about it out loud. And so so you saying it seems like I'm interested in people growing. I'm interested in me growing and inviting people to join me along that way. And that's why I always say I don't have a work of giving answers. I literally am just asking questions out loud, and I'm actually intrigued by everyone else's answers to the questions too. And I feel very, very grateful to get to live, grow, talk, think out loud. I feel like that's my work. Yeah. Thank you for that question. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Janelle Simmons. I'm on Myleik's newsletter, and a couple of weeks ago she talked about grief. And with the passing of your mom, have any new questions of you come about in regards to grief? And if so, kind of what are they?
Too many. I don't think I've ever felt grief before. And my father passed away when I was 11. And as I was telling you, my mom, it was really hard for her to let me feel my feelings. Like whatever work she hadn't done within herself, I couldn't be too happy. I couldn't be too sad. I couldn't be too mad. She really would prefer me stay at a pretty level pace. And now as an adult, I understand that was her own work that she needed to deal with. But I realized that I had never grieved. I really did not grieve my father at all. And so this is a brand new experience. And it's, the questions that come up for me in it are, you know, who was my mother outside of my mother? Who is she as a woman? Who is she as a reader, as an artist, as a sexual being, even as a mother? Like, what was her idea of what she was doing? What was she trying to do? What was she hoping to do? And the way that I talk to my friends now, and they're like, this is what I hope for my children. Like, what had my mom said to her friends about what she was hoping for the children she was raising? Another thing that really has surprised me in this experience of grief is like the joys of grief.
Yes.
I think that those of us who have witnessed a parent die or just have had to be a caretaker in any way, there's a deep relief of like, she is no longer suffering. You know, my mom lived in Ohio. We had snowstorms all the time. And I remember, she passed in November, and I remember the first snowstorm after she passed, I was like, thrilled that I did not have to worry about her. I was just so happy that I didn't have to worry how well she was or what was going on with her. But I think that one of the most moving things for me in this experience of grief is that I tell the story of my mom. I got to read my mom some of the pages of my book just a few weeks before she passed. And I read it to her and she goes, wow, that was so much better than I thought it would be. And I'm like, okay, girl. And it really, you know, our parents rarely know what we're doing.
Right.
They think, you know, and when I moved to New York, my mom's like, you're a prostitute. And I'm like, that's the only thing she could fathom that I would be doing.
Right.
And it really, like, she just couldn't imagine, really past her own imagination.
Right.
So the two things that have been really moving and surprising to me, one is that my mom is now part of my work. I write about grief. There is no grief writing without me and my mother's relationship. So it feels like this is the first time my mother is in like the nitty gritty of my work, which is really cool. And you know, her being a poor, disabled, Christian woman, there were all of these containers that she existed in that I'd have to open up to get to her. And now there's nothing between me and my mother. There's nothing between us for how we might relate, how I might speak to her, how, you know, even her, you know, I'm thinking about my mom rolling her eyes at me about something. Like, you can't even roll your eyes at me right now. And I'm going to tell you how I feel about XYZ. There's this new relationship that can happen when the physical isn't there. And I also, my newness of relationship with her is, you know, my mom had never been out of the U.S. She had never left the country. And probably 6 months before she passed, I had flown her to Jamaica to see me. And so my mom died with one stamp in her passport to Jamaica. And as she was passing, I just kept thinking, like, she doesn't even like to leave the country. How is she about to die? Like, I knew she needed, like, it was very clear that her body needed to let go. It got to a point where it's like, go for the sake of all of us. And I was terrified for her. Like, I remember, like, literally whispering in my mother's ear like a child, like, it's okay, you'll be fine. Because I can't imagine how it's terrifying to think about. And I think now I'm having this feeling of like, wow, my mom is so badass. She did this thing we're all terrified of doing. Like, she did it. She did it. And I'm so proud of her. And I'm so proud of her finding the courage to do the thing that I know she was terrified to do. So I'm so surprised by all of the new ways I'm in relationship with my mother, to where loss can feel like it feels like it'll truncate everything. I've had so much joy in finding all of the new conduits to her that just couldn't exist in the physical. Yes.
Good evening. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Shavonna Warden. I wanted to know about the artwork on the book cover. I am always drawn to covers, and yours is just amazing. So if you could speak to why this cover and if the colors mean anything.
Yes, thank you. This was actually, I live posed for that. I was laying in the water. There was like, we used ketchup bottles to like squirt color from where my fingers were. The artist, her name is Sarah Steiber, and she had contacted me in 2018 and invited me. She was doing a project called, I think it was called like Face Forward, because she had been studying advertising, and most of women's presence in advertising was from the neck down or from behind. And so she was interested in doing a project that was like face forward with women. And she was a reader of my work, and she valued my work. And so I flew down to San Diego, and she did 4 different portraits, and this was one of them. And we did photography first, and then she painted from the photograph. Wow. So she designed the whole thing, what it looked like. We had makeup, it was a whole day of shooting, and then then she painted from that. And I had the title of the book was, what was the title of the book? The original title was I Don't Want Your Love and Light. And it was an anti-racism book, and the cover was completely different. And when I changed what the book was going to be, and then I chose the Renaissance of Our Own, this photo just really felt like it was so applicable to how I wanted the book to feel. So yeah, thank you. It was fun to be able to call her and be like, remember that shoot we did 3 years ago? Yeah. It's going on the cover. Yeah. It was cool. Wow. Yeah.
My name is Joel Taylor, and I am. First of all, I want to say I'm very excited to see the journey of Rachel Cargle.
Thank you, friend. This is my friend from college, y'all.
This is my best friend, literally. So while she's talking, I'm dying because I just know her so well, and it's just I'm over here dying. Like my cousin's like, "Why are you laughing?" I'm like, "Cause it's hilarious. She's funny." But I wanted to know, what is your favorite chapter in the book?
I think that if I had the chance to what I really love about having written this book is that I kind of let y'all know enough about everything, and now I get to deep dive into whatever I want for the next book. Mm-hmm. And I think if I could blow out a chapter, it would probably be business, the business chapter. Yeah. I don't feel like I get to talk about business much
Which you are a beast, by the way.
Thank you. There's no one I want to hear that from but Myleik, honestly. I'm so grateful. Yeah, I think I would blow out business or the love chapter. I have so much fun in love, and I also have so much fun writing about it, so I'm looking forward to being able to blow out these chapters, because there's so much more to say about each thing. There just wasn't enough time or space. So business for sure. Yes. I don't get to talk about it that much.
And I don't think people know just how amazing, how incredible the businesses that you have built. Thank you. I don't know that I know you're in your robe. Sorry. I think this isn't working, but okay. I know, okay, you have another one. I know that you will just be in your robe, but just the Loveland Foundation and all the, just say, okay, are we
Randall!
If you, can you share how many, is there a number of vouchers or sessions or women and girls that you can tell us that you've served?
Well, one of my favorite things about the Loveland Foundation right now, getting the reports back, I have a CEO and we have a staff. Everyone thinks that I'm answering phones at the foundation, but I'm not.
Right.
And so I really have enjoyed getting reports back about everything that's going on. But the two things, we've given over 75,000 hours of therapy.
75,000 hours. That's why I'm just come on.
That's really great, because it's not just the Black women and girls getting therapy, but that's 75,000 paid hours to therapists who are also, moving through their careers, which I'm so excited about. But also our age group is moving up. It used to be we're moving into the people in their 40s we're getting more people in their 40s and more people in their 50s.
Yes.
And that is the most exciting thing to me, because it shows that we reached the audience of people who were maybe around in their 20s, and now they're like inviting their aunts and their mothers to get therapy. And I feel like this is really a beautiful opportunity for generational change for us. And I'm so proud of what they're doing at the foundation. And I'm so happy that it came to mind, that like an idea, and then it's a thing. It's wild.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Even as a businesswoman, like you said, and I am not answering phones.
Yes.
I am not the CEO.
Yes.
You took your idea and you're like, okay.
Yes. I feel so grateful for, in the book I talk about, I studied Oprah, I studied Beyonce, not even so much for who they were. Like, there were so many things I disagreed with for both of them. But I was able to, what I really was inspired by was that they do whatever they want.
Yes.
Like, they really, when I was studying Oprah, I was like, she has a network and she has a pizza. What? Like,
Right, she
just out here doing whatever, like,
doing whatever she wants, building schools.
Yes,
yes.
And I was so inspired by that. And I don't know if did I tell you I went to Oprah's house?
See how just don't. Yeah,
I had this.
casual.
I had the experience to actually tell her all of the things that I write about in the book. Like, I spoke to her, and it was such a wild experience to be there in her space. And I go, you know, I built my whole structure of my company is based on you and what I read of you. And she goes, and now look at you at my house. I was like, I know, that's the issue. This is the issue. Now I have, like, there's so many new spaces to dream and do and understand. And even, I love disagreeing with her. I love disagreeing and challenging myself to say why I don't agree and what could be different. And I'm really seduced by possibility these days. Like, it's sexy, it's intriguing, it's nourishing, it's really the light of life for me to be like, what else could happen? How else could this look? How else could it be? And I'm grateful for all of y'all participating and watching the arc of it.
Were there question?
Hi, Ashley Stewart. Thank you for your work. One of the things that I really love hearing you talk about often are your values. And I actually attended one of your highest values workshops a couple years ago. And one of the things that I think is challenging sometimes is staying so deeply connected to your values, especially in a world that doesn't always align, especially for Black women. So could you talk a little bit about how you stay so deeply connected to your values?
Well, I will have to say that it's rooted in a lot of privilege that I have. You know, like, I work for myself and I have what I call platform privilege. Like, usually I can move in a lot of ways. But as my friend Ebony Janice reminded me, that I really was moving like that before I got the privilege. That's the only reason I can move with it now. You have to practice things, even when it's hard or it doesn't really make sense. It makes me think about when the way that I love to organize, like, I love organizing my apartment, and I hired, like, a really wonderful organizer. But I used to always go to, like, the dollar store and get little baskets that were $1 each and do the same thing. Like, I would kind of do the same thing, even though I couldn't do it to the depth or the clarity. So I think that finding little ways to practice it wherever you are is really important, and feeling like you're worth your value now.
Yes.
And it's not just for when you get to a certain point in life, when you get to a certain understanding or promotion. Like, it's a lot of worthiness work. Like, I'm worth this now. I'm not only worth my values when I'm running the show. You're worth it when someone else is running the show, and you can say to them, hey, this is something I expect. How can we shift to allow us to move this way? I think it's so wild. The conversation of worthiness isn't even a conversation that I have in the book, but through this book tour, I've seen that it's such a theme in approaching each chapter.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Let's take one more.
Oh, there's
One more,
two. Okay.
and then it's our time.
Hello, my name is Missy Gaskan, and I wanted to thank you for all the work that you do through the Loveland Foundation. I am still with my therapist that I was introduced to through the vouchers in your program. What you do takes a lot of bravery and vulnerability. I was wondering how you determine what you're willing to share publicly.
the fact that I don't consider it is the issue. But the fact that I don't make many deep considerations. But you know how I'll answer that question is that the thing that I need to work on and that my community has reflected to me, which shows my lack of vulnerability, is that I often only share after I've figured it out.
Right.
Rarely am I like, I'm in the midst of this thing and I don't know what's happening. I come with the lesson, I'll come with the bow of it, but I won't, it's really hard for me to show the messy of it. Even if the thing was messy, I still have cleaned it up a bit before I've presented it. So I think there's still levels of vulnerability that I have to, like we said, honesty starts with self, that I have to come to myself. But also, I've always been a pretty vulnerable person. I've never felt, I'm not even like a super private person. Like I don't feel like I need to protect anything in the way that some people feel. But what that does mean is that I'm often sharing with my own curation. And I have to be critical of myself. What am I curating? Why am I curating it? What am I willing to share? And, or I should say, when am I willing to share all of these things that I'm quote unquote so willing to share? Myleik and I got together a few years ago, and I literally sat down at the table. I was like, I thought I was vulnerable. I wasn't. Like I in therapy, I'm learning sharing the thing isn't feeling the thing.
Ooh.
And so I was sharing some things, but I wasn't feeling those things. And once I felt them, that took me to a deeper level of vulnerability. And so I'm still reaching for new levels of healing and vulnerability. And so I don't want to answer that with here's how I'm so vulnerable, because so this is me practicing that I still have so much more work to do there. Yeah.
Thank you, Rachel
Thank you.
Cargle, for coming to Atlanta and sharing your work with us. I cannot wait for you all to, if you haven't read it already, read A Renaissance of Our Own.
Thank you for having me. I'm not sure who we're giving.
Thank you all so very much for coming. Don't forget, Charis Books is back there. If you haven't picked up your copy, you can pick up your copy as you leave. If you haven't picked up a copy and you want to, they do have some extra signed copies back there that you can, because then you can start a renaissance of your own. Thank you all so very much for coming. We will see you all again very, very soon. Have a good evening.
I am who I say I am. I shape my existence with curiosity and intention. I honor the spectrum of experiences I have had and will continue to have in this lifetime. Each experience adds to my understanding of the type of woman I decide to be. My highest values of ease, abundance, and opportunity give me guidance and recalibration toward my truth. They strengthen my yes and fortify my no. I walk confidently with the understanding that my choices are aligned. My place in the world is sacred. No one knows me better than I know me. I honor and celebrate the ways my chosen self unfolds as I learn, grow, and shift. My beliefs are rooted in my trust that my current self, younger self, and older self are all partners on my path to well-being. I surround myself with people who affirm safety, kindness, and joy. I maintain boundaries that remind me and others of my needs and my desire to be well. I show up with my very best as a daughter, lover, auntie, neighbor, and friend. I hold tight to my belief in revolution. Justice is not a passive pursuit, but one braided into every way I show up in the world. I name my privileges, being educated, financially secure, neurotypical, able-bodied, and cisgendered, and I use them as platforms to fight for the well-being of others. It's an honor to learn my way through this lifetime. I commit myself to my curiosity and interests. Gaining new and deeper knowledge not only of myself, but also of my unique interests like art and the history of Black feminism is always a worthy use of my time. I have found my work in the world to be rooted in using my genius as an activist, writer, entrepreneur, and philanthropic innovator. I do my work in a way that aligns with my values and desires. Rest is a right I hold as a human being. Knowing that my best self is my highest service, I tend generously to my rest and healing, mind, body, and soul. I give myself permission to let go of perfectionism and invest energy into simply being inspired by the living.